Hello everyone. So today I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about the prices of retro video games. As some of you may be aware from a select few videos on this channel, another hobby of mine is video games. However, I upload ceiling fan videos the most because that is what I am the most passionate about at the current time, and also it nets me the most views and recognition. You know, it's relatively easy to get mild recognition in the fan community because it's so small. The gaming community, you know, there are so many channels that talk about video games and play video games that barely get any traction. Of course, you have the big ones, you know, like Markiplier, PewDiePie, Jacksepticeye, Chugga Conroy, and so on, but, you know, they've been doing it for years. Probably the main reason that they're so popular is, you know, like, their, you know, high-quality editing, their sense of humor, the fact that they've been doing it for, you know, at least 10 years now. So, because, you know, nowadays with all the YouTube, all those YouTube policies and the kid versus adult thing, COPPA, copyright stuff, it's harder than ever right now to, you know, make YouTube into a career where you'll have enough money to sustain yourself. But that is neither here nor there. I'm more so talking about video game prices. That was just a little explanation as to why I really don't do too much video game related content on this channel. So you might remember I did make some videos going over my collection of Nintendo games, because that is the main video game console that I collect for, all the Nintendo lineup consoles from NES back in 1985 all the way up to the Wii U in 2012. I mostly skew older because I just like those video games better personally. Nothing against newer video games, it's just not quite as big of a fan of most newer games, and usually if there is a newer game I want to play, I can always just play it at a friend's house because all my friends usually have the newest consoles. But one thing that has really put me off of, at least, I mean, I still like to play older video games, but one thing that has really put me off of buying any more retro video games in the last couple of years is the prices. The prices of retro video games are absolutely awful. And anybody who has ever dabbled in retro games or tried to buy a retro game in the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years would very well know this. The prices are skyrocketing. I mean, and people have talked about this in the past where, you know, back in the early to mid 2000s, you could go to a flea market and people just listed them at the lowest possible price because they just wanted to get rid of them. They might have a huge shoebox of old Nintendo or Sega games at like $10 for the whole box, or maybe like $1 a game or something like that. You know, back when Toys R Us was still a thing and they were, you know, liquidating all their old Nintendo games, you know, you could go in and get them for like 50 cents a piece. And like the quote-unquote rare games maybe would only run you like 20, 30, 40 bucks. Like, you know, Panic Restaurant, Flintstones Surprise at Dinosaur Peak, you know. This is rare, maybe like 40 bucks for this. Nowadays those games are pushing $1,000 freaking dollars. So that's one thing that really drives me nuts, is the rare games, especially on the NES and Super NES, those games are pushing new limits with how expensive they can get. Because, you know, games like I mentioned, Panic Restaurant or Flintstones Surprise at Dinosaur Peak, or there's other ones like, you know, Cheetah Men 2, Snow Brothers, Bubble Bobble 2, games like that, you know, those games, I haven't looked at their prices in a while, but I'd assume all of those games are anywhere from $700 to $1,000 now. Maybe some of them are even over $1,000. Cheetah Men 2 is probably somewhere around $2,000 at this point. The prices of these games is just absolutely insane, and it really just makes me scratch my head and think, who is buying these games at these prices to, like, keep this market value? Because if no one were to buy them, the prices maybe would go back down, but that's not the case. I mean, of course, nowadays, less people are seemingly spending that much money on these rare games, but still, their prices are not deflating. And I know that COVID did give some of these prices a resurge. Like 2018 and 2019, some of them were dropping a little bit. But then with COVID, you know, nobody goes out anywhere, everybody stays home, everybody is, you know, doing stuff around the house. They're like, oh look, my old video games, maybe I should buy a few more of them, and then there you go, prices go back up. So that did happen, and they are seemingly kind of stagnated right now, but you never know when they could go back up or down or whatever. I mean, people have been saying that they might drop back down for a long time now, and that's not going to happen. Maybe, like, there will be small drops here and there, but is there ever going to be a huge drop where it goes back to the way it was, 15 to 20 years ago? No way in hell. There is no way in hell we are ever going back to that. As much as it would be amazing, there is no way. And that right there is the main reason why I just don't want to collect retro video games that much anymore, or why the spark, the passion for me is just completely gone, because the games just cost too much money. On top of rare games costing you, you cannot find good deals for rare games. On top of them costing a ton, you cannot find them for less, For instance, in the ceiling fan market, sure, like a K63 Casablanca Victorian, on eBay or collector to collector, they might charge you a couple $100 for that. I mean, if the collector wants to get rid of it, they might charge you only $50 to $100, depending on who it is. But then, you could go on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, and if it's your lucky day, you could find one for $10, $20. I mean, the two I have, I got for $30 a piece, so there you go. Yeah, with video games, it's not like that. Everybody and their grandma knows the prices of these things. It always overshoots it. There's always these stupid news stories about like, oh, sealed Super Mario Brothers sold for $100 billion. And then everybody's like, oh shit, I have that game. I could sell it for that much too. And you could go to, it doesn't matter whether you go into a retro video game store with like people who are experts on these game prices, or like go to a garage sale with some 90-year-old senile lady. She will know those prices just as well as they will. Everybody knows these prices. Well, that's not exactly true, but it's mostly true. Sometimes, the regular garage sale sellers will actually upcharge them because they look on eBay and they're like, oh, look at that, they are going for more. So it's impossible to find good deals. Everybody knows these prices, and everybody charges them at either that or higher. At best, you'd get it for like maybe $5 less. If it's like your lucky day, like finding a game seller at a flea market who's like desperate to get rid of it. He's like, yeah, the going rate for this is $45, but I'm feeling generous. I'll give it to you for $40. That's like deal of a century these days. And on top of that, even common games are getting a little too expensive. Like sports games or shovelware games, as they are usually called. Ordinarily they would go for like, even back in like the early 2010s when I started out in retro video game collecting, they could go for like 50 cents or $1 a piece, and you could get like a whole box full of them, for like $10 to $20. Nowadays, a single one of them can cost $10 to $20. It is outrageous, The local video game store near me usually charges $5 per, which is okay. But then you go to flea markets and other places or look on eBay, and yeah, it's like $10 to $15 for one single John Madden or FIFA game or NBA Jam or whatever those games are called. It's just absolutely outrageous. And then you have consoles like the Sega Saturn, where just everything is expensive. I don't own a Sega Saturn, and I don't have any Sega Saturn games. And unless those prices ever go back down, I don't think I'm ever going to get a single Sega Saturn game or the Sega Saturn console. Because everything on there, even like common games, like... Because I think the Sega Saturn has some games that the PlayStation 1 has. PlayStation 1 version costs like $30. Sega Saturn version costs like $250. It is absolutely ridiculous. So, with all that ranting about these awful video game prices, the point to take away is that the market is just so broken and so corrupt and just so inflated. It's inflated like a giant balloon, and unfortunately I don't think this balloon is popping. No matter how big it gets, it's not going to pop, which really sucks because it just deters small people like me from collecting retro video games, because I still buy them every once in a while, but it is very rare. Maybe only like 3 games a year, if even that. Because, the spark isn't there, the passion isn't there. Because, part of what keeps the spark and passion for collecting something alive for me is, the sense of adventure, the sense of getting a good deal, Sure, I might have to, like, drive an hour and then another hour back to pick up, like, a Craigslist listing, but as long as I'm, getting something valued at, say, like $100 for 20, at the end of the day, it's a good deal. Or, like hunting at flea markets, that sort of thing. Yeah, since you're never going to get a good deal, say for a few bucks on a retro video game, just the passion isn't there. Because just sitting on my ass buying games on eBay for full price, where's the fun in that? I mean, it's cool to get the games, but that sense of adventure and that sense of getting a good deal is no longer there. So with those things dying, the passion and spark for me to do it, the ambition dies as well. So yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to say on just why the retro video game prices are jacked beyond belief. If you're looking to get into retro video gaming, maybe try something else instead, because it's going to run you a lot of money. And like I said, I am pretty dormant in terms of collecting. I do still every once in a while, but it's barely worth it to me anymore. And after watching this video, it should be abundantly clear why. So, that's all I have to say. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all later.